Hi Cancer, how are you guys? Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Mary Tarot. We're going to do your reading, Cancer. I have never been shown what I am about to show you. In all the years I have done this work, in all the readings that have come through me, I have never been given access to what the energy is offering right now. Typically, a reading illuminates a moment, a season, a specific chapter of someone's life with enough detail to guide them through what is immediately ahead. But what unrolled in front of me when your energy entered this space was not a chapter. It was the entire remaining map. The full, unabridged, breathtaking cartography of where your life goes from this point forward. Not in vague generalities, in terrain, in landscapes, in the specific topography of a life that is about to become unrecognizable to the person currently living it. And the reason I say I have never seen anything like this is not that the map itself is unusual. Every life has a map. What is unusual, what stopped me and forced me to take a breath before I could even begin, is the scale. The map of your remaining life is enormous, not in duration, though you have more time ahead of you than you probably allow yourself to hope for. Enormous in scope, in richness, in the sheer variety and depth of what is coming. It is the map of a life that has not yet begun to show what it is capable of. And everything you have lived until now, every valley and desert and difficult passage, was the narrow opening of a canyon that is about to widen into something you cannot currently imagine. Let me start with where you are standing right now, because the map begins here and the terrain of your current position matters more than you think. You are on a plateau. That is the clearest way I can describe the energetic geography of your present moment. A plateau is not a peak and it is not a valley. It is a flat, elevated expanse that you reach after a significant climb. And you have been climbing. For years. Perhaps for most of your life. The terrain behind you, the territory you have already crossed, is steep and rough and marked by the kind of obstacles that would have turned back someone with less endurance than you possess. I can see it on the map, the path you have traveled, and it is not a gentle trail. It is a rugged ascent through dense forest and exposed rock and weather that did not cooperate. There were stretches where the path disappeared entirely and you had to navigate by instinct alone. There were moments where the incline was so severe that forward progress was measured in inches rather than miles. And there were camps along the way, places where you stopped to rest and recover, that you mistook for destinations. You thought you had arrived. You thought the plateau you reached was the summit, and then the path continued upward and you had to find the strength to keep climbing. I want to honor the climb before we move forward, because the map insists on it. The territory behind you is not just rough terrain, it is a testament. Every section of it tells a story that deserves to be acknowledged. There are passages on your map that are marked with the kind of difficulty that most people never encounter even once, and you encountered them repeatedly. Losses that came in clusters rather than in isolation. Betrayals that arrived precisely when you were most vulnerable. Seasons where the universe seemed to be testing not just your strength, but your fundamental willingness to continue participating in a life that was offering so little in return for so much effort. And through each of those passages, you did something that the map records with what I can only describe as reverence. You kept going. not gracefully every time, not without complaint or doubt or the occasional collapse onto the ground where you lay still and wondered if getting up was worth the effort. But you got up every time. Every single time the path knocked you down, you found the part of yourself that refused to accept the ground as a permanent address, and you stood and you took another step. The map also shows me something about the climb that I think you have never been told and need to hear. You were not climbing alone. You thought you were. There were stretches, long stretches, where the solitude was so complete that you were certain no one was watching, no one was helping, no one cared whether you made it to the next ridge or slid back to the bottom. But the map shows otherwise. At every critical juncture, at every point where the path was at its steepest and your reserves were at their lowest, there were interventions. Subtle ones. A thought that arrived at the exact right moment and shifted your direction by a single degree. A person who appeared briefly, offered something essential, and then disappeared before you could fully recognize what they had given you. A door that closed so forcefully that you had no choice but to turn toward the one that was open. These were not coincidences. They were coordinates on the map, plotted points of intervention that ensured you would reach this plateau, this specific plateau at this specific time, carrying everything you need for what comes next. But here is what the map is showing me that I need you to understand with every cell of your being. You have reached the actual plateau now, not a false summit, not a temporary rest stop, the genuine, permanent, hard-won plateau that the entire climb was designed to reach. And the view from here, the panoramic view of what lies ahead that is only visible from this specific elevation, is what this reading is about. Because what lies ahead of you is not more climbing. The arduous, exhausting, seemingly endless ascent that characterized everything behind you is not the template for everything in front of you. The terrain changes here. Permanently. And the life that unfolds across the new terrain is so different from the life you have been living that I need to walk you through it carefully, territory by territory, so that you can begin to prepare your nervous system for the scope of what is coming. The first territory the map reveals beyond the plateau is a wide, fertile valley. It stretches out in front of you with a lushness that your eyes, accustomed to the sparse vegetation of the climb, will struggle to take in at first. This valley represents the immediate next phase of your life, and its dominant feature is ease. Not the ease of laziness or the ease of having nothing to strive for. The ease of a life where the effort you invest produces results that are proportional to the investment. You have been living in a distorted economy where you put in enormous effort and received modest returns, where the energy you spent on relationships, on work, on personal growth, on simply getting through the day consistently exceeded the rewards those investments generated. The distortion was a feature of the climb, not a feature of your life. The terrain was steep. The conditions were harsh. The same effort that barely moved you forward on the incline will carry you enormous distances across the valley floor. And the first thing you are going to notice as you enter this new territory is a disorienting sense that things are working. Not occasionally, consistently, reliably, in a way that your climb-conditioned mind will initially distrust because you have never experienced a sustained period where the ground was level and the wind was at your back. Let yourself be disoriented. Let the distrust arise and then let it pass without acting on it. Because the ease is real. It is the natural state of the terrain you have earned access to, and it is not going to be taken away. The second territory I can see on the map is further out, but approaching faster than you would expect. It appears as a river, a wide, powerful, abundantly flowing river that cuts through the valley and touches every area of your life simultaneously. This river is the flow of abundance that the map shows entering your reality in the coming period. And when I say abundance, I am describing something the map is showing me with unusual specificity. This is not a trickle. This is not a modest improvement in your financial circumstances. This is a volume of flow that will require you to expand your capacity to receive, because the container you currently have, the one that was sized for the climb, is not large enough to hold what is coming. Money will be part of it. Opportunity will be part of it. But the river also carries love, recognition, creative inspiration, physical vitality, and a depth of human connection that you have been thirsting for during the dry passages of the climb. It carries everything, and it carries it in quantities that the version of you standing on the plateau cannot yet fathom, but that the version of you who lives in the valley will come to accept as normal. I want to be specific about how this abundance enters your life, because the map is showing me the tributaries, the individual channels through which the river's flow reaches you, and they are worth naming. One tributary comes through a specific person who has access to resources or opportunities that you do not currently have access to. This person is not a stranger. They are either already in your life or about to enter it, and their role in your financial elevation is not charitable. It is collaborative. They see something in you that aligns with something they need, and the partnership that forms between you will be lucrative for both of you in ways that neither of you could achieve alone. Another tributary comes through a shift in your own perception of value. Something you have been undercharging for, undervaluing, or giving away freely is going to be recognized by the market, by your clients, by the people who benefit from what you offer as significantly more valuable than you have been treating it. The adjustment in how you price yourself, your time, your expertise, your creative output, will feel uncomfortable at first. The climb conditioned you to accept modest returns, but the valley does not operate on climb economics. In the valley, what you offer is worth what it is actually worth, and the gap between your current pricing and your actual value is about to close with a speed that will surprise you. A third tributary, and this one carries emotional weight, comes through an inheritance. Not necessarily financial, though it may include money. An inheritance of opportunity. Something that someone before you built, created, or set in motion, whether a family member, a mentor, or a predecessor in some area of your life, is going to become available to you in a way that directly accelerates your material reality. You did not earn this through effort alone. You earned it through being the kind of person that the original builder would have wanted to inherit what they created. Worthiness is its own qualification. And you are worthy. I want to pause the map here because something is happening in the way the energy is delivering this information that I need to acknowledge. It keeps unrolling. Every time I think I have reached the edge of what is being shown, the map extends further, and each new section that appears is not a repetition of what came before. It is a new territory entirely, a new landscape with its own features and its own gifts. I have never experienced a reading where the scope of what is being revealed continues to expand the longer I look at it. Usually there is a boundary, a natural edge where the energy says this is as far as we go today, but your map has no such edge. It keeps going. And what I am seeing in the distance beyond the valley and the river is so vast that I need to take it one territory at a time, or the sheer volume of it will overwhelm the reading. The third territory on the map appears as a garden, not a wild garden, a cultivated one. Intentional, designed. Every plant placed with purpose and every pathway leading somewhere specific. This garden represents the phase of your life where everything you have been building, often without realizing you were building anything, comes into its arranged form. Projects that seem scattered find their connection. Skills that appeared unrelated reveal themselves as complementary. Relationships that served different purposes in different chapters of your life converge into a network so supportive and so perfectly structured that it feels as though an architect planned it. The garden phase is where you stop feeling like you are improvising your life and start feeling like you are inhabiting a design. Not someone else's design, yours. The design that your soul has been assembling from the raw materials of every experience you have ever had, including and especially the difficult ones. What strikes me most about this territory on the map is its beauty. The valley was about ease, the river was about flow, but the garden is about intentional beauty. This is the phase where your life stops being something you survive and becomes something you curate, where the aesthetic dimension of your existence, the way your home looks, the way your days feel, the quality of the conversations you have, the texture of the experiences you choose, all of this elevates to a level that reflects who you have actually been all along. During the climb, beauty was a luxury you could not afford to prioritize. Survival demanded function over form. But in the garden phase, function and form merge. Your life becomes not just effective, but elegant. Not just workable, but artful. And the pleasure you take in that artfulness, in the deliberate conscious creation of a beautiful life, is not superficial. It is one of the deepest forms of self-expression available to a human being. You have earned the right to live beautifully. And the garden is where that right is exercised in full. Here at Mary Tarot, readings occasionally offer a glimpse of the road ahead, but what is happening in this reading is not a glimpse. It is a full aerial survey of a life that is about to become extraordinary in ways the viewer has never dared to envision. The fourth territory on the map is the one that made me stop breathing when I first saw it. It appears as a structure, a home. Not in the literal sense, though a physical home may be part of it. In the energetic sense, a place of belonging so deep and so permanent that the word home is the only one that captures it. This is the territory where the person I have been sensing in your energy fully enters your life. Not as a visitor, not as a temporary companion for a single chapter, as the person who shares the remaining map with you, whose own map, when placed beside yours, aligns so precisely that the two maps together reveal pathways that neither map shows alone, hidden routes, secret gardens, territories that only become accessible when two specific people walk them together. This person has been on their own climb, their own steep, rough, solitary ascent to a plateau that matches the elevation of yours. And the timing of your respective arrivals at your respective plateaus is not coincidental. It is the most carefully orchestrated synchronization on either of your maps. You had to arrive at the same elevation at the same time for the next territories to become accessible. If either of you had arrived too early, the other would not yet have been at the altitude where the connection could form at its intended depth. If either of you had arrived too late, the window would have narrowed. But neither of you arrived too early or too late. You arrived exactly when you were supposed to. And the connection that forms between you from the vantage point of this shared elevation will have a quality that ground level connections cannot achieve. The clarity of high altitude. The perspective of people who have climbed far enough to see not just each other, but the entire landscape of what their joined path makes possible. There is a detail on the map about this home territory that I find particularly moving. It shows two paths merging into one, not one path absorbing the other. Two distinct, equally significant paths converging into a single wider road. This is important because it means the connection does not require either of you to abandon your individual journey. You do not lose yourself in this union. You do not become a supporting character in their story or they in yours. The two paths merge while retaining their distinct characteristics, creating a shared road that is wider and richer than either path was alone. You will continue to grow as an individual. They will continue to grow as an individual. But the growth happens side by side in a mutual witnessing that transforms solitary achievement into shared meaning. The home this connection creates is not a building, it is a state. The state of being known, accompanied, celebrated, and held by someone who walks beside you without trying to walk for you. I want to describe what the map shows about this person because the details are vivid, and I believe they will help you recognize the connection when it begins to materialize. This is someone whose strength is quiet, not passive, quiet. They do not perform their capability. They simply exercise it with a consistency and a lack of fanfare that you will find both calming and deeply attractive. They have an emotional intelligence that was sharpened by the same kind of difficult terrain that sharpened yours, which means they do not need you to explain your wounds. They recognize the landscape of your history because they have traveled similar ground. And the recognition, when it becomes mutual, when both of you realize that the other understands without needing to be told, will produce a feeling of relief so profound that it might manifest as tears, not sadness, the physical release of the tension you have been carrying for so long that you forgot you were carrying it. The tension of being misunderstood, of having to translate your inner world into a language that the people around you could process. With this person, no translation will be necessary. You will speak and be heard in the original language of your experience. And being heard that way, fully, without reduction or distortion, is going to change something inside you permanently. The map continues to unroll. Let me keep following it. The fifth territory appears as an open field, vast, borderless, extending in every direction with a freedom that is the energetic opposite of the constriction that defined the climb. This field represents the phase of your life where external limitations fall away, not because you fight them, because you outgrow them. The circumstances that currently define your boundaries, whether financial, geographical, relational, or professional, are going to expand so dramatically that the concept of limitation itself begins to feel like a memory rather than a present reality. You will have options you have never had. Freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom to say yes to things that were previously inaccessible, and to say no to things that were previously unavoidable. This territory is where the life you have been building finally reaches a scale that matches your actual capacity, and the match between your inner world and your outer circumstances produces a harmony so complete that people who encounter you during this phase will sense something about you that they cannot name but find irresistible, a settledness, a rootedness paired with expansiveness, The energy of someone who is exactly where they belong and knows it. I want to tell you what this freedom looks like in practice because the map is showing me specific details. You will travel, not as an escape from your life, but as an expression of it. Places you have dreamed of visiting, places that have existed as images on a screen or entries on a list you assumed would never be checked off, are going to become real under your feet. The open field phase is when the world itself becomes accessible to you in a way it has never been. And the experiences you gather as you move through it will become part of the richness that defines the remaining territories on your map. You will also have the freedom to choose how you spend your time with a precision you have never enjoyed. The obligations that currently consume hours that could be invested in joy and rest and the relationships and creative pursuits that make you feel most alive, those obligations are going to thin. Not because you abandon your responsibilities. Because the valley's abundance has reached the point where the activities you do out of necessity and the activities you do out of love begin to converge. You will look at your days and recognize them as yours, not your employer's, not your family's expectations, not the inherited template of what a productive life is supposed to look like. Yours, shaped by your desires, filled with your chosen people, structured around the rhythms that make your specific body and your specific soul feel most at home in the world. If you have been watching Mary Tarot, you have heard readings that describe shifts and transformations. But this reading is not describing a shift. It is describing the full remaining scope of the life that the universe has been quietly and patiently assembling for 47 years, waiting for the moment when the climb was complete and the viewer was ready to see the view. The sixth territory on the map, and I am astonished that it continues to reveal new ground because most readings would have concluded by now, appears as a mountain. But not the kind of mountain you climb to reach the plateau, a different kind entirely. Where the first mountain was an obstacle, something you had to endure and overcome, this mountain is a destination. A peak you choose to ascend, not because the path demands it, but because something magnificent is at the top and you want to see it. This represents the phase of your life where you pursue something that matters to you on a soul level, not for survival, not for security, for the pure, exhilarating, voluntary joy of reaching towards something that calls to you from the highest possible altitude. A creative project, a contribution to the world, a legacy that carries your name and your energy into spaces and times beyond your physical presence. This mountain is not a burden, it is a privilege. And the strength you built during the first climb, the endurance, the resilience, the capacity to keep moving when the path disappears, all of that becomes your equipment for this voluntary ascent. You were not just surviving the first mountain, you were training for this one. And the difference between a mountain you must climb and a mountain you choose to climb is the difference between endurance and passion. The first mountain required you to dig deep into reserves of strength you did not know you had. This mountain will ask you to dig deep into reserves of vision, of creativity, of purpose that you have not yet fully accessed because the climb did not require them. This is where the gifts you have been carrying but not using finally find their application. The creative abilities that the struggle did not have room for. The leadership qualities that survival mode kept suppressed, the capacity for visionary thinking that could not operate while your energy was consumed by the basic mechanics of staying afloat. On this mountain, all of those dormant capacities activate. And the experience of using the full range of what you were built for, not just the survival toolkit, but the entire inventory of your gifts, is going to be one of the most fulfilling experiences of your life. You will understand on this mountain why you were given the specific combination of qualities you carry. You will see how every apparent contradiction in your nature, the softness and the strength, the sensitivity and the resilience, the pragmatism and the vision, was designed to work together for a purpose that only becomes visible from this altitude. And the view from the top of this chosen mountain, the one you climb by desire rather than necessity, is the final territory the map reveals. It is the widest view on the entire map. From this vantage point, you can see everything: the valley, the river, the garden, the home, the open field, all of it spread out below you in a panorama so beautiful and so clearly designed that any remaining doubt about whether your life has meaning or direction or purpose dissolves completely. From this height, the path makes sense. All of it. The steep sections, the false summits, the camps you mistook for destinations, the weather that did not cooperate, the moments where you crawled. From this height, you can see that every segment of the path was necessary, that nothing was wasted, that no suffering was pointless, no detour was truly a wrong turn, no loss was without its purpose in the larger architecture. That the life you are looking at from this peak is the life that could only have been built by someone who traveled exactly the route you traveled, endured exactly what you endured, and refused at every point where giving up was an option to stop. That is your map. That is the full remaining cartography of your life as the energy is showing it to me in this moment. Valley, river, garden, home, field, mountain, view, 7 territories, 7 phases of a life that is about to unfold with a richness and a generosity that matches finally and permanently the depth of the person living it. And I want to end this reading not with a prediction, but with a recognition. You did not stumble onto this map. You built it. Step by step. Climb by climb, decision by painful decision. The map is not something being given to you as a reward. It is something you created through the sheer force of your refusal to stop growing, to stop believing, to stop moving forward through terrain that would have justified turning back at any point. The map is yours because you earned every territory on it. Not through a single heroic act, but through the accumulated courage of 10,000 small decisions, to keep going when stopping was easier, to stay open when closing was safer, to believe when evidence suggested otherwise. And the life it describes is yours because no one else could have climbed what you climbed and arrived at this plateau carrying what you carry. Take a breath, look out over the view, and let yourself feel for the first time without reservation or self-protective doubt the full, staggering, almost impossible scope of what the rest of your life holds. It is unbelievable, not because it is too good to be true, because it is exactly as good as the truth of who you are and who you have always been. Thank you for being here with Mary Tarot. The plateau is behind you now. The map is unrolled. And every territory ahead of you is already waiting for the only person who is ever meant to walk it. You.